It's time for Rick Party's Notebook, news and stories from around the world and in our communities from my perspective. And today, I want to honor for Black History Month, a man that I have admired for a few years now by the name of Joe Madison. And sadly, on this day, I bring you this news that the Black Eagle has passed away. Yeah, man. This man's voice, he was relentless on the airwaves. It echoed far beyond the confines of the studio. His dedication to justice wasn't just all talk, it was seriously action. Joe's question was always, what are you gonna do about it? This man set records, and it was not for fame. It was for causes. He wanted us to do something rather than talking all the time. Joe said, what are you gonna do about it? Rather than asking questions, what are you going to do about it? I first tuned in to Joe Madison on Sirius XM's Urban View, and I heard more than just the show. And in that moment, I knew that I was called to do more, to be more. It was Joe's truth, unfiltered and unapologetic, that woke me up, man. I mean, seriously. But, you know, this journey with what I do call Rick Party's Notebook, it began in childhood. A little mustard seed. I used to listen to a guy by the name of Lou Palmer on WVON in Chicago. He would always say Lou Palmer's Notebook. And he'd talk about serious issues around Chicago. So while I was coming up for a name for the show, and this was during the era where Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, that whole era, that whole year, a lot of things were sparking and happening, and the world was changing. I became a little bit more conscious, and I used to do this subject, and it got to the point. This segment rather. It got so heavy that I stopped doing it after a while. But this brings me right back to this. I was like a kid, like literally listening to Joe Madison. I remember one time I had the opportunity to call Joe, and this was about maybe 3 years ago. Talk about a person who had been in radio for over 35 years. I was nervous like a kid because this guy was a mentor. This is a guy that I literally looked up to. I mean, he had purpose on that microphone. You may, if you listen closely, you can hear the nervousness in my voice listening to Joe. Check this out.
Rick from Florida, first-time caller. You're on with Madison here on Sirius XM Urban View. It's 42 after the hour. Go ahead, Rick.
Oh, thank you for that. I love that. Joe, I'm a nationally syndicated radio host, but let me tell you, I am in Joe Madison University. I have my master's working on my PhD.
Go on.
Yeah. And no, when I say that, I'm in my Joe Madison.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He thought that was a building somewhere. that was an actual course. Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Joe,
Go ahead, Rick.
You've inspired me so much as a radio personality. In fact, I can almost look at stories and say, Joe would read this. Joe would talk about this, and Joe would say it. Joe would say it like this. And I've read stories, and I listen to the next line. Like, I'd be damned. Joe did the same thing because that's what Joe would do. That's what Joe would think.
Well, and, I hope, and first of all, it's always good. I mean, it's great when people in your industry acknowledge you, and it thank you. So let me just say thank you, and let me also say that I hope that you have the freedom to say, to be daring, to have the freedom to say to your audience what needs to be said. I'll tell you something Dick Gregory shared with me, and he said, Joe, because I would always, well, you can't say this, well, you can't say that, you can't do this, you can't do that. And Dick Gregory said to me one time, he said, let me tell you something. You don't need anybody to validate you.
That's right.
And you know what? That's the point. I don't need anybody. And I hope that you have the freedom where you are with your platform to tell the truth, because Lord knows you'll be fact checked. and,
Absolutely.
and you don't have to worry about being validated as long as you are telling the truth.
Wow. So as we mourn the loss of this titan, let's celebrate the path he paved for voices like mine, for conversations that matter, for truth that resonates. Joe Madison just wasn't a host. He was a movement. And his memory, we continue that movement, speaking, challenging, and changing our world, one story at a time.
I didn't realize this myself. There's basically only one bird, I think, and maybe there are others, that would attack an eagle. And y'all can look this up. And it's a crow. A crow will get on an eagle's back and attack, start pecking at the eagle. The eagle doesn't get frustrated. The eagle doesn't fight back. You know what the eagle does? Flies higher. Just keeps flying higher. Altitude keeps going up, keeps flying higher. Flies so high that the crow has to get off the eagle's back because they can't stand the altitude. Well, and so what's the moral of that story? Get these fucking crows off our back.
The Black Eagle, Joe Madison. That's all I got in Rick Party's notebook, news and stories from around the world and in our communities, from my perspective.